Hello and welcome in to another episode of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. I'm Kyle Glaser alongside three-time All-Star closer Heath Bell. Joining us live today from New Orleans, Heath is in Louisiana for a bowling tournament. Heath, before we dive into discussing the Padres and everything going on in Major League Baseball, I have to ask, how's your game?
My game's pretty good. I'm at the National Bowling Tournament in Louisiana, and I average like 220, but in this tournament, I only average 180 because I'm not a professional bowler, but I am a professional ball thrower. So, and everybody says I throw the ball 100 miles an hour. I don't throw it that hard, but I think to bowling, I do throw it that hard. So,
We got to get a set up, you versus Mookie Betts, and see who can win that matchup. That would be a great offseason challenge. Heath, the
I
Padres went.
definitely,
Go ahead.
I would definitely win.
You'd win. All right, the gauntlet has been thrown. We'll. I'm going to
Go,
see
Mookie.
Mookie on Friday. I'll let him know. All right, Heath. So the Padres this past road trip went 2-4 against the Astros and the Tigers. We are starting to see the impact of all of their position player injuries. They're currently without four regulars in their lineup due to injury: Jackson Merrill, Jake Cronenworth, Luis Ariz, and Jason Hayward. Even some of their backups are hurt, Brandon Lockridge being the primary one. And during this past road trip, when the Padres went 2-4, it was really the offense that struggled. They hit 223 as a team. They averaged 2.5 runs per game. Even the two games they won, they scored 3 runs and 2 runs. So we're starting to see the impact of all these injuries taking a toll on their offensive production. You were at the 3 games in Houston. What's your overall thoughts on this team, and what were your overall takeaways from what you were seeing during this road trip?
I think most of the hitters, I mean, it's a big let loose that, Jackson Merrill's hurt and Conworth and, some other guys. But I think the biggest thing is, I took it as the pitchers. They were missing a little bit high, this and that. But the guys that are coming up and hitting, like Tyler Wade's doing pretty good. But the other guys, I think what they need to do is just do the little things. You don't have to hit the home run. You don't have to get the big hit. Just get on base, let the pitcher throw. I mean, I saw one series, it was one inning. I forget if it was Friday or Saturday that literally we were swinging at the first and second pitch, and we're not getting deep into counts and as the hitters wise. So it's just, if the young guys go up there, yeah, you might see a fastball, but unless you're going to hit it solid, let the pitcher throw a couple pitches and kind of get into their bullpen. So I think that they'll be fine overall. I mean, here's the good part about it. Right now, we're struggling with all the injuries now, and these are all baseball injuries. So I think they'll be fine down the road. And usually, July, August is when you have those baseball injuries, and that really hurts you. Right
Yeah.
now, I think they're doing okay. I mean, it's just a bad road series, and we just have to chalk it up and throw it away.
Exactly. And I think it's important to note too that right now this team is in survival mode. So if you look at their lineup against the Tigers on Wednesday, where they were shut out 6-0, it was their first shutout loss of the year. They managed only 2 hits. The starting lineup had 4 guys who were signed to minor league deals this offseason, another guy who was outrighted off the 40-man roster less than a month ago, and someone else who has been unprotected and unpicked in the Rule 5 draft 3 times. The Padres right now are just trying to survive. And I think you understand that it's early, these injuries are going to happen. And right now it's just about keeping their head above water. This is not a stretch where anyone should expect the Padres to continue rolling like they were when everyone was healthy to start the season. 7-0 start, 15-4 start. Right now it's just about staying alive. I think back a little bit to like the end scene in Saving Private Ryan, the final battle scene where they're just trying to hold on until the reinforcements arrive, until they get some air support. That's where this team is right now, just survival mode. And we'll see if they're able to do that. If you go back to that first game where Merrill was hurt, Cronenworth was hurt, and Tatis was out against the A's, that Wednesday game. Since then, the Padres are 8-5. When we look back on this stretch a few weeks from now, if they've gone 500 from that point forward until the guys get back, that's a win. They just have to survive.
Yeah, I would definitely say the thing is, the one thing that I've always told the minor league guys when they came up to the big leagues, don't change anything. Don't do anything different. You're here for a reason, but don't try to. But then here's the other aspect. You kind of have to elevate your game a little bit, maybe do a little bit more focusing. That's probably a bad word to say, but like, I would say homework, like really know the pitchers, what they're going to throw in this situation, that situation. I mean, there's, stats up the yin yang. So just be prepared, because here's the thing with those guys that have come up, this is their opportunity to do really well. And I think Tyler Wade is the only one that's kind of showed he deserves to be in the big leagues, where say everybody comes back, there might be that hard decision with Hayward and Tyler Wade. What are we going to do? So it's just one of those things that this is the opportunity for them to show the big league club that they're not a AAA guy, they're a big leaguer.
Yeah.
So do the little things, as in know what pitchers, going to do, where to play and do defensively, this and that. You might get sent down, but then they'll keep that in the back of their head and go, hey, you know, you never know. I might want to call this guy up later in the season. Or, like in my aspect, I was with the New York Mets and San Diego saw something that the Mets didn't see. And then, a year or two later, I'm over there doing really good. So just keep your head up. And then the last thing I want to say about this, we're trying to keep our head above water. Fans out there, if you're listening, if we still have the same month, we're basically on pace for winning 100 games right now. So don't get too down on themselves. We had a bad road trip. Let's throw it out. Let's come home. And if they don't do well against Tampa and San Francisco this week, then I might get a little worried. But this week, I think we'll be fine. They'll be home, their own beds, and home cooked meals, and they'll be good.
Yeah, and again, keep in mind, let's give the Astros and Tigers credit. These were two playoff teams last year. The Astros are not the powerhouse they once were, but you still have a lot of frontline players with Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Framber Valdez, Josh Hader, and a lot of other good players as well, Isaac Paredes, Christian Walker. And the Tigers, I've talked about this, are a really good up-and-coming young team. If they had come out of this road trip 3-3, even with everyone healthy, I would have said it was a good road trip. So 2-4, given the state of their roster. Again, it is what it is. And like you said, coming home where they're more comfortable, Tampa Bay should be a very favorable matchup. They have struggled so far this year. They're winless on the road. Padres, of course, are 12-1 at home. It's just about, okay, the road trip happened. Let's flush it. Let's get back and let's do what we do at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they'll be fine. I'm not panicking. So fans out there, I think we just got spoiled the first 3 weeks of the season. That's really what I think happened. So I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, and with that, I think it's important to note too, you mentioned this earlier, you'd rather have this happen in April than in August, September when you're in the stretch run. Again, guys get hurt. And that's also why it's important not to rush guys back. So Jackson Merrill is eligible to come off the IL. Jake Cronenworth is eligible to come off the IL. But there's no reason to rush anything here because the last thing you want to do is bring Jackson Merrill back and that hamstring injury lingers. Or Jake Cronenworth comes back before the rib is fully healed and it bothers him all season. Luis Arraez, of course, a very scary collision. Anytime we're talking about a head injury, you want to take that very, very, very slow and be 100% certain he's in great shape. So even though it's been a struggle, again, it's not fun watching the offense struggle and average 2.5 runs a game. But given where the team is in the season, you just kind of have to wear it a little bit. You do not want to rush these guys back to try and start winning games now. You want them fully healthy so they can last the rest of the year.
And then here's one other aspect. You're coming home. You have one of the best fans in baseball right now that they're showing up to the games. In Detroit, they weren't there. In Houston, they were, but I'm pretty sure Houston was saying not nice things. Me wearing my jersey at the game, they weren't saying the nicest things. But anyway, I'm pretty sure the fans, they're great here in Houston anyway. But you're coming back to San Diego. The fans are going to uplift you, even the young guys. You're going to feel confident. You're going to feel excited. You're going to have that adrenaline pumping at home. So, like I said, this week is kind of the week to kind of throw that series away, and let's get back to baseball. Let's get back to winning baseball.
You mentioned the home advantages that the team feels at Petco Park, and this Padres group has always been a team that rides the emotional wave a little bit. That's just the makeup of their roster, the makeup of their clubhouse year over year over year. Right now, the Padres are 12-1 at home. They're 5-7 on the road. And independent of looking at just the record or an individual statistic showing how much better they're hitting at home on the road or vice versa, you can kind of see the difference. When they're at home, there's a vibe, there's a verve, there's a sense that they can come back from any deficit, no matter how big it is. Where on the road, you're not really seeing the same level of energy. They get down and it starts to feel a little like you're just not seeing the same level of energy. How much of that, in your experience, again, it's not uncommon for teams to play better at home than on the road. How much of that is the impact of having the fans behind you versus not? How much of that is sleeping in your own bed and just kind of the comforts of being at home? What is it that gives you that little extra edge at home than perhaps on the road?
When you're at home, you have the fans that kind of make you feel good that you're playing, even if you're struggling. They have your back. When you go on the road, there's really not much nice is being told to you, and you're kind of like in the enemy's, territory. So, when they say baseball is, like 90% mental, that's the mental part of it. Can you deal with, like say, in Houston, their big hitter Altuve's coming up, and you got two guys on pitching, and you're winning by one. What are you going to do? I mean, the crowd's roaring for that guy and saying that you're horrible, and you first two pitches are balls, or when you're up to bat, the first two pitches are strikes, and haters out there pitching, and you're down by one, but you got bases loaded. So those are the mental part. Can you slow it down, focus on what you need to do, or do you get caught up in the emotion? See, there's a lot of great athletes out there that get caught up in the emotion, and sometimes they ride the wave and they're great, and then sometimes they're really low. And that's just the sad part about baseball, that there's really talented people that the emotion gets the best of them, and that harnesses, and that's the reason they play good, and that's the reason they play bad. And I'm hoping the Padres aren't all that, but it kind of shows they have been. But it is what it is. That's where Machado and Tatis kind of stand around and say, "Hey guys, let's calm down. We'll do this. Let's do that. Let's have some fun as a team. Maybe have some fun in the clubhouse, in a visiting clubhouse, because it's easy to do it at home. You have all your antics. You can go to the store, grab what you need. Anyway, that's why it's mental. It's a real mental game. That's why closers are really crazy. Even Trevor Hoffman. Trevor Hoffman's a little crazy too, people, even though he seems like the most sane guy out there out of all of us.
Well, we're going to have to circle back and get a good story on that here later in the show. All right, Heath, we're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors. And after that, I want to talk to you a little bit about Xander Bogaerts, some of the veterans, and maybe where some guys can step up a little bit here as we enter this next homestand. Keep it right here. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors.
Todd Father, I love the way that modern technology has changed the way that we buy, sell, trade cards, even rip packs. They're called slab packs, and they're on Arena Club. No more shuffling through everything. The common cards are all over the place. Stuff's getting folded out and all messed up. Arena Club keeps it nice and tight in your digital showroom. And then when you want that card and you want to show it off, what do? You just let Arena Club know.
Let them know and grab it and take it with you. Show it off online. I think this is huge just because the fact that you talked about cutting the corners. You want to get a card that doesn't break or doesn't have a problem with it, go right to Arena Club. They have everything you need. Easy money right there for really, really good, exceptional cards.
After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your vault for safekeeping or trading and selling. Right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL and use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/FOUL, code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase.
All right, welcome back to Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. Kyle Glaser alongside Heath Bell. Heath, we talked about this offense just trying to survive right now, and some of that's going to come from the players who have been called up really stepping up. We've seen Gavin Sheets, who is a minor league free agent signee, have a fantastic start to the season. Jose Iglesias has been great offensively, made some nice defensive plays as well. He's dropped a few balls that are a little surprising just because it's Jose Iglesias, but they're tough plays. Tyler Wade, as you mentioned, has done some good things, played a solid center field, which they've desperately needed after losing Merrill and Lockridge to injury. But some of it is also the veterans, the guys who you are paying to be stars, playing like stars. Fernando Tatis Jr. has done that. Manny Machado has done that. Xander Bogaerts so far this season has not done that. And again, we are talking about small sample sizes. It's April 24th. Guys have rough first months all the time and pick it up. At the same time, we have seen Xander Bogaerts decline 3 years in a row now. And if you look under the hood at some of the more advanced metrics that are available on StatCast, it's concerning. His bat speed is in the bottom half of Major League Baseball. His hard hit percentage is in the bottom half of Major League Baseball. His barrel percentage, he's barreling balls up, he's in the bottom 10% of Major League Baseball. Anytime you see a guy who's entering now his early 30s, you're seeing the bat speed decline, you're seeing the hard hit percentages decline, you see the amount of times he's barreling the baseball decline. It starts to get really concerning. You mentioned before the year you were optimistic for a bounce back for Xander Bogaerts. Do you still feel that way, or are you starting to get concerned?
I'm not really concerned right off the bat because some guys have bad first months. Trevor Hoffman's first month April was never really his best. I'll get concerned probably the end of May if Bogarts isn't really turning it around. And I mean, right now I think they're just nitpicking because if we were winning games, I don't think people would be talking about that. This past road trip. But
Yeah.
it is a little concerning if you start looking at all the numbers. But I think he's playing a pretty good shortstop. And then here's the other aspect. It's a short sample, but after 2 months, then I could start going, hey, maybe down the road in a year or two, you might just have to eat the contract and say, hey, it was a bad signing.
Yeah, and I think that's the main concern is that I would argue it was a bad signing when it happened. I said this at the time, I wrote it at the time that Xander Bogaerts was very valuable to the Red Sox. They should have given him the 6 years, 175 million that they gave to Trevor Story. That would have been reasonable for them to do and a reasonable contract for him. Signing him for 11 years, $280 million as he was moving into his 30s just didn't make sense, especially at the time the Padres had a lot of middle infielders. They had Ha-Seong Kim, they had Jake Cronenworth. They needed help in other places. Tatis had done it. They needed help in other places at the time. It never made sense. They're pursuing Trey Turner that offseason too. It never made sense for them to sign a shortstop to big money. So I would argue it was a mistake signing regardless. But their performance has certainly been concerning. And I will say with Xander Bogaerts, it's important to modify expectations. And Heath, you can speak about this as well, that look, when a guy is a monster in their 20s, it's not always fair to expect the same level of production in their 30s. The Xander Bogaerts that was hitting 290, 300 with 20, 30 homers a year, driving in 100 runs a season, that guy just has not been around for a while now. And I think it's unfair to expect that from him. If he just can hit 270, 280, 15 to 18 homers, 70 RBIs, a lot of doubles, that's more than enough. And that would be fine as a number 6 hitter. He's just batting cleanup right now because of all the injuries. If he just does that, the Padres will be okay. But I think the concern right now is he's hitting, in the 250s with a slugging percentage in the 350s. The lack of ability to drive the baseball. That's what's concerning.
I think everybody's wants, what he did with the Red Sox, like you said. And I was looking for him to bat like, 250 to 270, really. And, but I'm with you. When he signed that big contract, I was like a 290 hitter. Forget about his age. A 290 hitter getting that much money, it just seemed like he should be in at least 300. So because you're only going to decrease over time, and especially he's in the American League, knowing all those pitchers out east. Now he's got to come to I always thought was the best pitching division out west in the National League, and he's dealing with that a lot more. So I knew the average was going to drop a little bit, but then again, we moved him to second. I feel like going back to if you know your position, you know where you're hitting, you feel a little bit more comfortable. But when you bounce around a little bit, you feel a little uncomfortable. Like, I'm not saying Bogaerts is doing this right now, but he's batting fourth. Well, maybe I need to have a little bit more power. Batting down in the lineup, I can just hit and be me. Up in the lineup, I need to get on base more or something like that. Sometimes you try to do more, and that's when you don't perform as best. So, I mean, that's the other mental part of the game. And I don't know if he's dealing with that, but heck, if I was in his shoes, I'd be dealing with that.
No question at all. Heath, we've talked about the state of this offense a lot, but this has an effect on the pitching staff too. You live this. Pitching with an offense that you knew was probably going to give you 2-3 runs a game, and there was zero margin for error, both on your part individually, as well as the entire pitching staff. From the pitching standpoint, how much extra pressure does this add when you know your offense is in the state it's currently in right now for the Padres, and knowing that the margin for error has been decreased pretty significantly?
Oh, it's a huge problem for pitchers. I mean, I'm not saying our pitchers are doing this, but I know back in the day, some of the pitchers, they were like, I just need a quality start. They didn't care about winning. They wanted to go there, 6 innings and 3 runs. That's a quality start or something like that, whatever it was for starters. And they didn't care if we lost the game 3-2 or whatnot. It was more, I need my quality starts. And I feel like that ruined a little for the game because everybody was talking about quality starts over wins. Because,
Yeah.
so you'd have like K-Rod up in Seattle doing great. Felix Hernandez. And, he'd only have 15 wins and he'd have 15 losses, but his ERA would be like a 2. And he'd strike everybody out because, he'd lose games 1-0 or 2-0 back in the day in Seattle. So it is a big thing for pitchers. And, it's everybody's individually different, but, you just have to go out there and think, hey, one pitch at a time and execute their pitches. And what I saw on this road trip is they were doing that, but then 1 or 2 pitches got up in the zone and that's when they hit. Or like we talked last time, when you walk people, I mean, we're notorious for walking people on the road, but at home we don't walk anybody. So, and that hurts us too. So yeah, it does affect the pitchers. Maybe they're trying to strike more people out on the road because we're not hitting, and therefore that's why they're. But at home we know we're hitting, so it's like let's go right after the guys. So I mean, I think they'll straighten it out. I'm hoping.
When you go into the locker room as a reporter and you ask the pitchers about not getting a lot of run support, you'll always get the, it's, not about that. We're a team. We win or lose as a team. So they always externally put out, it doesn't bother them. In reality, I want to ask you internally, does it start frustrating the heck out of you and your staff when you keep holding teams to 2, 3, 4 runs and keep losing?
Oh, you can tell the guys that are trying to not there's certain guys that will pitch, 5 or 6 innings. And then you'll see them try to go a complete game in the 3rd inning, and it's like, dude, just do one at a time. I saw this all the time in the bullpen. Guys would try to raise their game, but try to pitch not like they pitch, a pitcher would go out there and try to pitch to contact, and our defense is making some errors. So now he's trying to get swings and misses. That doesn't happen. Or the guy that's trying to, he can pitch swings and misses, but late in the game, he's trying to do that when he's getting tired in the 5th, 6th inning. And then he leaves the pitch up or he walks a guy and then we don't pull him soon enough because he has, his 70, 80 pitches. Everybody thinks you should go 100, but sometimes you're tired after 70, 80 and you should pull them. And that's a manager's decision. But then sometimes you can let a guy go 110 pitches because he just has it and the hitters can't hit that day. So that's where the managing and pitching coach really, take place and really earn their money. So it's just a balancing act. But trust me, if the teams don't score, the starters turn into, well, I just need quality starts because I want my contract. And that's where you don't become a team, you become individual players. And that's the hard part of baseball.
Absolutely. As we move into this next series against the Tampa Bay Rays, we mentioned this is a favorable matchup for the Padres. So the Padres are 12-1 at home. The Rays are winless on the road. Now, it's only been 4 road games. They've had a lot of games at home, their temporary home, I should say, in Tampa at Steinbrenner Field. But one of the things that's notable is despite the fact the Rays have played most of their games in a minor league park with very hitter-friendly dimensions, they're bottom 10 in the majors in runs scored. The Padres, as we know, have been absolutely dominant on the mound at home with a sub 1.5 ERA at Petco Park. It does feel like this is a great matchup at the perfect time for the Padres where, hey, their offense right now is averaging 2 runs a game, 3 runs a game, 4 runs a game, kind of feels like their ceiling right now. That's just what it has been objectively on this past road trip. But going home against a team that is not hitting well, even in good hitting conditions, I have a feeling we're going to see some low-scoring games here this series, but it should be a lot of Padres wins, 3-1, 4-2. This does feel like a really good matchup for Padres pitchers, and that in turn will make things a little bit easier on this offense where, hey, if they can bust out and score 7 or 8, that's great. But I think realistically, this series, I will be very surprised if Padres pitchers give up more than 8 or 9 runs total over these next 3 games against this Rays offense. I really will be.
Well, this series, like you said, it's very favorable for San Diego. Tampa, I never, keep them lightly, hold them lightly. They're a pretty good team, but yeah, there's the situation that Tampa's in, the situation San Diego's in. This, it's the best matchup. It's the best situation for San Diego. Your hitting's struggling. You got a team that's coming in that's kind of struggling, but you do really well at home. So if they let's put it this way, if they don't win this series, I'm going to get worried, but come Sunday for San Diego, because this is like heavily favored for San Diego to do really well. I mean, like I said, we have to, the mental part, you got to throw that road series away. Hey, we're at home. Let's go. Let's be fine. You got a team that's not that good, but let's not play to their level. Let's get back on winning track and let's play San Diego baseball like we have been the last 3 weeks.
And it's important to kind of zoom out here and keep everything in perspective as we're talking about the issues the Padres are working through and what their struggles have been recently. They're still 17-8. This is still the team with the second best record in all of Major League Baseball. This is a team that is outscoring opponents by a wide margin, that, again, has been dominant at home, has a lot of star players. They're just hurt right now. So I think it's important to not panic, not go, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. They're in a great spot. And right now it's about surviving, staying afloat, taking care of games in the series they should. And if they do that, they'll be fine. Like I said, they're 8-5 since that Wednesday game against Sacramento, where they were without Merrill, Cronenworth, and Tatis that day. When those guys come back, if we look back and they've gone 500 over that stretch, that is a win. That should be what we shouldn't say that's what they should be trying to do. Of course, you try to win every game, but I think realistically, again, given their starting lineup features 4 minor league free agent signees, a guy who was unprotected and unpicked in the Rule 5 draft 3 times, and a guy who was outrighted less than a month ago, it's important to moderate expectations and just survive.
Like we said at the beginning of the season, this is a really good team. There's just not much depth.
Yeah.
Guys get hurt. This is where the San Diego Padres are the weakest at. From other clubs that are really good or playoff contending clubs, if the main guys get hurt, we're like, we're up here, and then they get hurt. I mean, we're totally out of the screen. We're down here because we don't have much. So that's just what we're dealing with right now. And I like it because it's in April. We got off to a good start. We can if we lose a couple games here and there, because as soon as we get our guys back in the next week or two, we'll get back on the horse. We'll start doing really well. Like you said, we just have to, hold our own and just gasp for some air. And before you know it, the reinforcements are going to show up.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see if they can get back on the winning track against Tampa Bay. And as you mentioned, after that, they have an off day, then a 2-game set against the Giants, which will be very, very, very interesting given how good the Giants have been so far this year. All right, Heath, I want to go back to something you said earlier, and I actually want to introduce a new segment that I want to make a regular occurrence here on the show. Story time with Heath. Heath is a repository of amazing, hysterical, entertaining stories. You mentioned earlier that Trevor Hoffman was, quote unquote, a little bit of a weird guy. What is your favorite offbeat Trevor Hoffman story that you can tell that's family friendly on the air?
Trevor Hoffman's story, I'm pretty sure next week I'll have a better one, but offhand right now, because I didn't know this was coming.
I didn't either. You said it. No, I had to ask.
I'm just trying to think of one that is family friendly or whatnot. Family friendly. I'll make one really simple and I won't get too crazy. So Trevor, we all like to have a couple beers and drink a little bit. Trevor likes to become a drummer when
really?
And he uses certain things to be drum. We'll just let that go. But he likes to be a drummer. And some guys become good. Jake Peavy brings out his guitar, and some guys would sing, and Brian Giles would maybe dance. Trevor liked to drum, and he would find drumsticks at the weirdest places. They're not always drumsticks, but he'd make them drumsticks. So, but it was a good time. It was always really fun with him. He never did, he wasn't like breaking stuff and making drumsticks, but he was just come up and he'd always be a drummer, just beating. And I think if he actually had some drums, I mean, he's got some rhythm, so I think he'd be fine. I don't know if he could play for a rock band, but he definitely maybe the high school band or something.
Are we talking like taking off his cleat, turning a bucket of balls over and just like using his cleat to bang on the bucket of balls? Like what kind of materials are we talking here?
I was leaving that to letting for your mind to wonder, but yeah, maybe some shoes, some legs, some maybe food products. You never know. So it was just, randomly you just start hearing somebody beat, like a drum or a back of a chair or a wall, and you look over and that'll be Trevor. So he's a good drummer.
Yeah, I was going to ask, between Peavy's guitar, Trevor Hoffman drumming on everything you can imagine, Brian Giles, who I'll never forget the story about from Buddy Black talking about how Brian and Marcus Giles had matching thongs at one point. Brian Giles dancing. How was the Padres' overall musical aura back in those days?
We had great music. All I have to say, you have Brian that had great songs that would come up. You never know what song would come up. Jake with the country, and then Trevor with just classic rock and roll hits. So from AC/DC to Journey to, I can't even name all the names, but anyway, Steve Miller Band or something. But he just had great songs that everybody would jam to, that everybody knows, that maybe you don't know the title or the artist, but everybody knows the lyrics. When it comes on, everybody's like, oh yeah. So Trevor kind of controlled the radio a little bit. So did Jake and Brian. So it was really entertaining. And trust me, if Trevor controlled the music now, I'm pretty sure all the guys in the clubhouse would have a good time. I mean, there probably wouldn't be any Bad Bunny and stuff, but they'd all know the songs and the lyrics and stuff like that. So because, he just classic rock, he's good at.
What was your musical contribution?
I was a little bit all over the place. I'm like alternative rock, Linkin Park, and but then I have a bunch of kids. So, unfortunately, if you ever took my iPod back in the day, that's an iPhone. You'd hear like the Cheetah Girls or Britney Spears because my kids like that, or Hannah Montana. But then you'd hear Linkin Park and AC/DC and Aerosmith. So it was a little all over the place because I had kids at a young age. But
sounds a lot like mine. My Spotify right now, yeah, it's a lot alt rock, Linkin Park, Foo Fighters, etc. And then you have all the stuff my daughter likes to listen to. She's firmly in the Disney princess stage. She's 4, so there's some Frozen on there. There's some Disney songs. It's a very interesting mix going from Linkin Park to Let It Go.
And I know all the words, and that's the worst part. They're looking at me like, "What?" I'm like, "I got girls." Okay.
So, last question: could anyone sing back in those days in the clubhouse?
Jake could. Jake Peavy, he could sing. I don't know if anybody else could sing, or maybe I wasn't sober enough, but Jake would definitely sing. He can sing pretty good. Me, I'm horrible. Even at karaoke, I'm pretty bad. But I don't care. So I can dance and get up on stage and do all this, but I don't really care what you think. So that makes me for good entertainment. I'll just go and do whatever.
It sounds to me like we need a Padres band reunion tour with Trevor Hoffman, Jake Peavy, Brian Giles, and Heath Bell. I think we should make that happen. Those concerts in the park before Friday games out at Petco. I think we need to make that happen.
Yeah, we could do that. I could be out there. Totally. Jake would probably love to do that. I don't know if Trevor and Brian would be there, but I know Jake and I would definitely show.
Absolutely. We'll see if we can make that happen. Well, Heath, any final thoughts here as we wrap up, as we look ahead to the Padres homestand here against the Rays and Giants?
All I got to say is Padres, go out there and, if you get a 7-10 split, like I might this weekend, don't worry about it. Hit the 10, hit the back wall, get that 7 and get your spare and, plan on winning. Or, maybe let's just get 300 and win all 3 games. So
there we go. I'm sure that would make everyone happy. Well, Heath, thank you again for your expertise and insight as always. Best of luck this weekend. We definitely want to hear how the bowling tournament goes, and we expect you to lock it down just like you locked down so many games for the Padres in the early 2010s and late 2000s.
Well, we're going to try.
All right, everyone. That'll do it for another episode of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. Go ahead and give us a review, watch, listen, subscribe, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Definitely subscribe. We're making our way toward 1,000 subscribers. We want to get that. So please, please, please go ahead and subscribe. We've got a lot more great stuff. I'll have Mark Topkin on from the Tampa Bay Times tomorrow to preview the Rays series. We'll be back with Mike Cameron next Monday. Heath, of course, every Thursday. We've got a lot of great stuff here, and the season is just getting started. There's a lot more exciting stuff to come. For Heath Bell, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you later this week.